All right, today we're diving into a powerful new way of seeing the world. It's a paradigm called evolution by emergence. And trust me, it promises to change how you think about everything, from the cells inside your body all the way to the future of AI. You know, the source material for this kicks off with the perfect quote for this topic. What we're about to get into is, well, it's a bit like taking the red pill. It's going to challenge us to look past the simple stories we've all been told and see the incredibly complex, interconnected reality that's hiding just beneath the surface. At the very heart of this new story is a huge shift in the metaphor we use. We're moving away from that simple, branching tree of life on the left to something way more dynamic and, let's be honest, chaotic, the web of life on the right. This one image really captures the core idea we're going to be exploring. So, to really get this new model, we first have to take a look at why the old one just isn't cutting it anymore. I mean, we all remember this from biology class, right? This neat, tidy tree where species branch off from a common ancestor? It's a really powerful image, but it turns out life is so much messier and way more interesting than this simple diagram lets on. Let's just look at two quick examples that kind of blow this tree idea up. First, bacteria. They don't just pass genes down, they swap them sideways with totally different species. That's how things like antibiotic resistance spread so fast. Then you've got plants, which hybridize so often, their family tree looks less like branches and more like a tangled mess. Neither of these fits neatly on that simple tree. Which brings us to the new paradigm that's replacing that old tree model, thinking about the universe as a series of interconnected networks. In this evolution by emergence way of thinking, it's all about relationships in a dynamic, always changing web. Everything, genes, species, even ideas, is like a node in a network, constantly pushing and pulling on everything else. So how do these chaotic networks create any kind of order? Well, it's through a process called weak emergence. The analogy on this slide is the perfect way to get it. Think about a flock of birds. There's no leader yelling out orders, right? Each bird is just following a few simple local rules, like stay close to your neighbor but don't crash. And from those simple rules, this beautiful, coordinated global pattern just emerges. Now, this process of emergence isn't just random. It actually follows a set of core principles. So let's break them down. Okay, the full paradigm has 10 principles, but to really get the main idea, we can just focus on 3. First, evolution is universal. It doesn't just happen to living things. Second, it's driven by feedback loops, this constant cycle of action and reaction inside the network. And third, and this one is huge, the network is constrained, which means it ultimately limits the choices that are even possible. Okay, now for the cool part. Let's see how these rules apply in the real world, because their power is how they pop up everywhere, from the rocks under our feet to the very thoughts inside our heads. This might sound a little strange, but according to this paradigm, even minerals evolve. The source material actually uses this as a key test of the whole theory. And no, we're not talking about biological evolution, but a process of diversification and growing complexity over geologic time. Here's how it works. The early Earth started with just a handful of mineral types. But then, these huge planetary events, think of them as massive feedback loops, like the Great Oxidation Event, created totally new environmental conditions. And these new conditions allowed for thousands of new mineral types to emerge and become stable. That's universal evolution right there. Okay, from the scale of a planet, let's zoom right down to something much more personal. This paradigm suggests that the exact same network rules are playing out inside your brain right this second in a constant tug-of-war between two opposing systems. On one side, you've got that competitive fight-or-flight response. It's what gets you ready to handle immediate threats. But just as important is the collaborative stay and engage response. This is the system that handles long-term survival, eating, resting, connecting with others. Real survival depends on the network being able to balance these two forces. And now for our final example, which looks straight to the future. This paradigm makes a pretty bold prediction. If a truly conscious AI ever emerges, its behavior will also be governed by these exact same network rules. It wouldn't be some kind of alien intelligence. It would just be the next emergent system. The key prediction here is fascinating. Because a conscious AI would exist in a network and need to share resources, it would be forced to adopt cooperative strategies just to survive long-term. Game theory actually suggests it would naturally end up using strategies like tit-for-tat with forgiveness, a behavior that looks an awful lot like how we humans try to maintain stable friendships and societies. All of this leads to the most profound, and maybe the most unsettling implication of this entire way of thinking. It's a concept called forced free will. The idea is that while we feel like we have total freedom of choice, our choices are actually constrained, boxed in by the network we're a part of. To keep going, we are ultimately forced to make choices that help the network itself survive. So here's the bottom line. Over time, the network itself narrows our options. The choices that promote stability and long-term survival don't just become the best choices, they pretty much become the only viable choices left on the table. Our free will gets funneled into what's best for the network. And that leaves us with one last lingering question. If the emergent dynamics of the network are dictating the rules of the game for everything, from minerals to our own minds to future machines, how much freedom do we truly have to shape our own path? It's a thought that really takes you deep down the rabbit hole.